Alright, let's talk about Niv-Mizzet Visionary. This version of Niv-Mizzet is from an earlier time in history. But as the first canon magic card with a whopping 7th version, I think there's a good amount to say. Although surprisingly less than you probably believe. So Niv is somewhere around 16,000 years old. He predates the Guild Pact by almost half. Early in his life, there were other dragons that were very similar to him, but they were all killed at some point, leaving him the last of these hyper-intelligent dragons of Ravnica. Around 10,000 years ago, he led an army that would become the faction known as the Izzet League. These were sort of the mad scientists of Ravnica. And as part of the Guild Pact put together by the Planeswalker Azor, the Izzet were put in charge of essentially city services. All the infrastructure stuff, like water, heat, that kind of thing. Note, he is what's called a parun, I don't really know how you're supposed to say it, but it means he's one of the original signatories of the Guild Pact. I think he's one of the only living ones left. Although technically he's died, so. So Niv eventually got bored of running the guild, more or less, and retreated more and more from the public eye to the point where he often wasn't seen for centuries in public. The work of the Izzet was carried out by the Ismagnus, and below them the Ismundi. These were Niv-Mizzet's inner circle, the highest level you could achieve in the guild, and it included people like Mizzet, also Ralzeric. By the time we meet Niv-Mizzet in the original Ravnica block, he hasn't been seen in a long time. And in fact, after one of his rogue mages tries to resurrect a clutch of his kin dragon eggs, that he comes out of hiding. He ends up fighting the Nephilim, who have feasted on his dragonkin's blood and grown to epic proportions. I believe he defeats one, but then he gets close to being killed by another one, and he teleports away. A lot of people assumed for a long time that he actually planeswalked away, and that's why he's rarely seen, but no, Niv-Mizzet is not a planeswalker. But that is some insight into early 2000s magic speculation. When we see him again in Return to Ravnica, he takes a more active role. He is encouraging Ralzeric to pursue the implicit maze. That is the maze put together by the Planeswalker Azor, following ley lines on the plane that would allow the creation of the living Guild Pact. However, his plan doesn't go how he wants it to, and Jace Beleren gets that power. By Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance, he is aware that there is an impending threat from Nicol Bolas. Unfortunately, one of Bolas's agents incepts an idea into his head for the planar beacon, and that becomes his all-consuming obsession, and he puts Ralzeric in charge of the guild. He also prepares defenses, and when the plan doesn't go how he wants to, he actually confronts Nicol Bolas directly and battles him. And does pretty well. I highly, highly recommend reading The Gathering Storm, which, if it was put out as a novel, would have been one of Magic's best novel. Instead, it was put out as like a 20-chapter newsletter through email. But by War of the Spark, Niv-Mizzet is dead, having tried to hold off Nicol Bolas on his own. And alongside of all of these awesome defense preparations he made. However, it's revealed during War of the Spark that Niv-Mizzet has actually colluded with Ugin, Nicol Bolas's spirit dragon brother, and lingered past death. And so in desperation, during War of the Spark, the guilds came together and actually revived Niv-Mizzet as the living Guild Pact. That power wasn't all he wanted it to be. He obviously didn't single-handedly defeat Nicol Bolas, but he did have an important role to play. In the aftermath of the Phyrexian invasion, he ignores a lot of the growing tension in the guild in order to investigate the Omen Paths. Something he has now done. Ravnica has almost like a monopoly on understanding and mapping the Omen Paths, although obviously they don't have a complete map of the multiverse or anything like that, just places that Ravnica is connected to. And in fact, Ralzeric is setting up beacons on other planes like Thunder Junction. As for Niv-Mizzet himself, he is known as the Firemind. He is a genius. And he often has a lot of different projects going on that don't know about each other, and he's the only one who knows or understands how all these things come together. It's how he used to run the Izzet, and it's how he runs the Office of the Guild Pact now with his secret projects like looking into the Omen Paths. While his guild is associated with electricity and stuff, this is not actually him using electricity as a breath weapon. He is a fire breather. This is him with a Tesla coil kind of thing in the background, and it just happens to line up. But if you follow the line, it tracks over to this other larger bolt of lightning behind him. Niv-Mizzet, I should note, personality-wise, is sort of standoffish, very blunt. He is one of the oldest and most powerful beings on Ravnica, and he knows it. And while I could go into some more detail about him on other things, this video is already over 5 minutes, just giving you a broad overview of his history.